So welcome back to Restless. And I'm glad that we were laughing right beforehand because we're talking about different personality types. In particular, some of you may have heard of the 4 temperaments. And with the 4 temperaments, we have 4 co-hosts here. Myself, Paul. I'm thinking Paul is probably more choleric than anything else.
Maybe. We'll find out.
Yeah, we've got Joe. I've got suspicions on Joe.
We're gonna see if you know. We're gonna see if you can guess it on air in a moment.
We've got Diane.
Nicely done.
Yeah.
Great.
And myself, yeah.
All right, let's keep it moving here, folks. Let's go. All right, here we go.
First of all,
we're talking about temperaments.
Had you ever heard of the 4 temperaments? Paul, you said that you've taken a bunch of different temperament quizzes.
Yeah.
So
the one we're going to talk about is my least favorite.
I'm sorry, it was the free one.
They're all free if you find the right version. Now, I've taken loads of temperament personality tests. They're generally pretty accurate. I'm pretty unabashedly myself all the time.
You're psychopathic?
Well, I hope not.
No.
Well, we're all a little bit, I guess.
A little bit, yeah, somewhere on the degrees.
Yeah.
But the temperaments go way back. They go all the way back to Hippocrates in BC time, the founder of medicine. And if you're not familiar with it, the 4 temperaments are based on bodily fluids. Kind of gross to think about that, like phlegmatic. It's about the phlegm. Sanguine is blood, and the other 2, melancholic and
bile.
What's the other one?
Choleric.
Or they're about bile. I don't know.
Pancreatic secretions.
Yes, basically. But the whole idea is that a certain amount of bodily
Sounds scientific.
bodily fluids basically impact your personality. Now, that's
obviously true.
Well, it was more than that too. It was that if when you were sick, that means that one of those 4 temperaments or whatever were off.
Right, which is why they used to do bloodletting.
Because if you're too sanguine,
stick a leech on you to suck some blood out.
But it did a good job because it actually thins the blood. So it actually did something positive. They just didn't know that it was what they just had it wrong. What it was doing.
Don't leeches carry diseases though?
Yeah, but I don't think about that.
So does everything else they did in those days. But
yeah, it's fair enough.
Okay,
but anyway,
we move
so these 4 temperaments are just kind of 4 different basic personality types. Now, of course, nothing is absolutely a perfect system, but I think it's interesting to learn, and it gave me some insight when I took a little temperament quiz and found out mine. So, Paul, you've taken some. So, what is yours?
I'm more split. I have a split personality. Joe thinks I have multiple personalities. That's a different.
They're all great guys, though. So that works out fine.
No, I'm kind of split. I think I'm technically more melancholic, but I'm melancholic choleric, or maybe more choleric. I can't remember. I'm more or less 50-50.
So to go to real super brief overview of which one's which. So the choleric is this is from temperamentquiz.com.
Okay,
it says the choleric is the natural leader, determined, energetic, and goal-oriented. Go get him. I can see that.
I think I'm fairly goal-oriented, energetic, and a natural leader.
Yeah, I would definitely say that. I would agree with that.
I think it's been described that when a cleric walks in a room and there's disorder.
Sure. Oh, you say choleric, not cleric. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's cleric. Thank you.
I'm a cleric.
Yeah.
Are you a choleric?
I guess he could also say hi, father, if there's another cleric in the room.
Okay.
In any case, I have to address Joe's bad jokes.
No, you don't. Just ignore them. Please move on.
And when a cleric walks in a room and there's chaos or disorder, they naturally want to make order out of it. And like somebody who's not cleric would look at that and be like, I don't want to do that. And a cleric person has no idea how they cannot comprehend why somebody wouldn't want to make order out of this chaos.
Okay, so that's choleric. Yeah, definitely an order person. Melancholic is a perfectionist, but who's kind of more sensitive, thoughtful, quiet, self-driven, but not really necessarily the leader. Kind of someone who just kind of often does their own thing.
Glass half empty type of person, generally cynical.
Yeah, can be.
Yeah.
Melancholy, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I would say I'm that too.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But I think I can't remember when I took it, I was pretty 50-50. I might have leaned cleric, but I can't remember. Maybe melancholic.
So the phlegmatic is those who are kind of like the peacemaker, chill, easy.
Oh, that's me too. Definitely. Anyway, go on. Sorry.
Multiple personalities. See, it's all 3 so far. Let's go for 4.
I'm actually all the things.
Jesus,
perfectly.
I think Jesus may be the only perfect
Paul's a
one
perfectly integrated man.
Balance. And the sanguine is the bubbly, life of the party, energetic, fun-loving.
That's totally Paul.
He cooks really well, but that's about it, really.
You bubble.
I am the life of the party. Go on.
So those are the 4 kind of basic types, and Joe wants me to guess his on air.
Yes.
And so
see how well you know me.
Yeah. So I've known Joe since he was 13 years old. So let's see. I would say you're definitely a melancholic. That's one of your. You're a melancholic phlegmatic.
Final answer?
Melancholic is your primary, phlegmatic would be secondary.
Okay. I am 62% choleric and 38% melancholic, according to
So we're very similar.
Interesting. Okay.
Because Joe does not appear lazy. He's not a peacemaker. See our other episodes where we fight.
Like I said, I don't appear lazy, but
Yeah.
I have the capacity for profound laziness, for sure.
Okay.
Can be hard to motivate. You're not hard to motivate.
Which one are we talking about right now, though?
Phlegmatic.
Yeah, why he's
laid
not.
back, chill kind of person.
Yeah.
So Diane,
I'm pulling mine up.
You're definitely a choleric.
Ours look very similar.
That's
Ours are opposite.
that's
Hard
part
charging, hard
true.
driving. Yeah.
Yes. I would describe
also-
myself as a leader.
You're also a perfectionist
Temperament.
and sensitive. So I
Yes.
think you're choleric melancholic.
That's correct. I'm about 50-50 split.
Really?
I don't know. Yeah, melancholic was kind of depressing at first because I just think of depressing people, but
But there's a great gift in being sensitive and thoughtful and quiet.
yeah, I would say it's more not cynical like you were describing, Paul, but definitely perfectionism. That's something that it's been a blessing and a curse my entire life, you know? It's good in some situations, but it's bad in other ways of just like being your toughest critic and, you know, wanting to just go above and beyond all the time. It can be exhausting. But yes.
All right, so what do you think I am then?
I just, even looking at this, still don't know what these things are, so I'm not going to... I don't know why I can't retain
Bodily fluids, Joe.
We will try to
I think
clarify
you're
this by the end of this
bloody
episode.
and...
I think choleric,
nasally
right?
Bloody and filled with
That's
bile.
right, biley a little bit? I don't
Choleric?
Yeah, when I took the quiz, I was 95% choleric. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh,
So that means
choleric.
you're
Well, also, by the way, I was supposed to take a test before this episode and failed.
Yeah,
So I'm
he
going
failed-
on one that
failed
I took.
to take
from-
it, but
Yeah, and I failed the test too. But
Well, you
that's
said
the
they're all
most
kind of
of it.
similar, right?
You know-
I struggled, though, answering some of these questions of, like, in this situation, I could be this, but in
Yeah.
another situation, I could be that.
So most of these things, I don't know about this one because it's free, but they also
Wow.
track
Free
track
things.
how you answer the questions, not
Okay.
your exact answers. So like if you answer one, like if they ask you 5 of the same question and you answer them differently, that actually goes into the algorithm
yes.
Oh, interesting.
of like how closely correlated
I think
the
when I
questions
had
that
to
should
do
be
when I had
correlated.
to do my
Yeah.
psych eval for seminary, I think that's how it worked.
Yeah,
but that
there's
wasn't
a
free.
550
so.
question, the MMPI.
What-
Yeah,
Oh,
there's
yeah, that's a good
multiple.
one.
I had to do
That's a
a
good
bunch
one.
of
This
surveys
this
of
was
that.
like 10 or
Yeah.
20 or something.
Oh, okay,
This is-
yeah.
this
And, you know,
is
I mean,
not the
They're
MMPI.
judging based on
Nobody's
very
gonna
little.
do the
Yeah,
MMPI.
I think it's worth evaluating it based on what it says about us. And like, you know, it says my weaknesses
Yeah.
are, you know, aggressive, antagonistic, argumentative, and combative. So obviously, there's not much to this test because I'm not, you know, I'm such a nice guy.
That is not true. But I'm also not argumentative, but that's not true.
I had a whole episode on politics where I sat back and just let Paul and Joe just go
I
at
have
it.
no memory of doing that. I remember us talking about politics afterwards. Was I like dreaming?
Even on the episode, I had to cut you guys off.
Like
We got
black-
for like 45 minutes. I'm like, guys, I'm
Yeah.
going to sleep, man.
So anyway, I think, as I said, I think, you know, I mean, come on, I'm not bossy.
We're both not phlegmatic. I think that's the point.
But that's the thing is that all of these personality types and really whatever nuances in your personality have pluses and minuses. So what are some of the benefits to you and your personality? And you don't even have to go on the 4 temperaments. You could just say your personality in general. Like what are some spiritual benefits? What are some benefits interpersonally? And then what are some challenges that you find in your own personality that you find something to constantly be working on?
I would say I'm very driven, type A. You know, I'm very goal oriented. I'm thinking 10 steps ahead. On the flip side, obviously that can be very good for just accomplishing things and, you know, building Catholic communities, right? In Stanford that I've used sort of that skill for delivering quality products, whether that's at work or teaching RCIA, you know, giving 100%, doing all this research and making sure that I have all the, you know, everything tied up. But I think it can also be, you know, a sort of a weakness in the sense that, you know, it's not easy necessarily to let things go. You want things done perfectly, and that is not God doesn't ask of us to be perfect in all aspects of our life. So, you know, you can be your own worst critic. You can be sort of critical, maybe you're like have high unrealistic expectations of others. I think another thing too is they talked about in this quiz scrupulosity, which is something that I've struggled with over the years of just being overly I'm very reflective and self-analytical, which I think goes in line with that sort of melancholic temperament. And so, you know, sometimes it can be challenging just over-analyzing things and not being able to like let stuff go.
That's your melancholic side.
Yeah.
Definitely. For me, I see, you know, as a priest, one of the negatives of being like 95% choleric is a lack of empathy. There's so many times I can't tell you how many.
You're not that bad.
I fake it a whole lot because
That's great, but there's
which is
something
good,
in
I
that
guess,
too.
but,
Like,
I can't tell you the number of times I'm thinking in my head, dude, just get over it. For example, a couple weeks ago.
For example,
Let me give an
when
example.
Paul came to me last week. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
No, like a few weeks ago, there was one of our kids from our youth group, his mom called me up and said, this kid is really sad. I'm not going to use the name because he may listen to this episode. I don't know. But Bob is very sad because Bob's hamster died. Can you come and say some prayers over the dead hamster?
Yeah, luckily, he won't know who you're talking about.
I know,
It's
right?
just that very general story. That's great.
I know, yeah. I hope, Bob, if you're listening
Dozens
to
of
this,
hamsters died this week.
it's but yeah, and like so, I of course I went, and I was very, very kind, very compassionate. But in my head, I'm just like, what? Like, it's a hamster, dude. It's a hamster. But I recognize that as a flaw in myself, and that's part of the choleric is just not necessarily having that empathy towards others as much as some others might. That's why people ask me, do you cry at funerals? I'm like, no, I've never cried at a funeral ever.
Really?
Even your own relatives?
Thankfully I've never had a very close relative die, but
I've had some close relatives die.
Sure.
you have, but
there are tears.
I do funerals. And I've had some sad funerals. I've had
You
people
also
suicides,
attend. You also attend in an outsized number of funerals.
Oh yeah, I mean,
as priest.
Yeah, it's almost like you become
40, 50 funerals a
Yeah.
year.
Right.
Yeah.
desensitized to it.
Yeah,
You
I
do
would
desensitize.
Yeah,
and,
extra volume.
That's a very high volume of funerals.
It is.
Yeah.
So looking at this, it says strong-willed with noble aspirations. I think I do see that in myself. I think that's a positive. I think I do approach situations or tasks, and I do tend to kind of think big about what can we do to like kind of change this. I tend to be kind of root and branch, change everything kind of guy, like a ministry. Like I'm not. I have I think I have kind of big plans for things, and so I think that's good. It also says that I just lost it. Often make sweeping judgments and can be hypercritical. Yep, it's definitely true. Yep. And I see that. Yeah, I think that in this temperament, it seems like there's a bit of a tension between the sort of like optimistic, like passionate, we're gonna fix everything, and then the like, what's the point anyway? Like it's all stupid. Isn't everything ultimately stupid? I feel that conflict in myself a lot of the time.
Vanity. Yeah.
That's interesting.
Like a cynicism that can come up, especially. It even says like if someone's a member of a group is not pulling their own weight, you're gonna step in, and then maybe also judge them for it. And I can totally see that myself.
Oh, that's in me too. Yeah.
I started a new job about 2 years ago, and when I came into this job, I just found, I can't not like look at things and just take control, even if I have a boss, which I do have. I'm not the boss.
You're not the CEO, so.
Right. Yeah. So that's what I struggle with. So I think it's good and bad. I think it's good because I can take control of things and like fill gaps which are necessary because like my boss can't do everything. Mm-hmm. But I mean, just last week, like I sent around this whole like staffing calendar for all of our like associates and analysts, just to figure out who I can put on my deal. And my boss like, I can do this. This is all by email. I'm like, oh.
You're like, you can, but you haven't.
I'm like, well, I'm like, sorry for stepping on toes. I just want to figure out who to put on my deal. And he says, okay, well, you're busy enough. Like, focus on something else. I'm like, oh, man. Like, but that's what I do. I fill voids. And
sure.
I don't know. Back to Joe's point, there have been times I've just been described as abrasive where I don't have the empathy. Shush. I don't have that empathy.
Sometimes.
I don't have
down.
like an empathy, but I think the way I've solved that is I can't like just be sympathetic. Like it's like an emotion. You can't just turn it on. I don't think I can't. Well, I'm also the way I am, but I think you can learn how to be at least listen. So that's what I've learned.
Yeah.
I can shut up. Well, that's hard too.
Well, that's hard,
yeah.
And take feedback, right? So if your boss, are you going to do that again? If your boss reaches out, are you going to build another calendar?
I'm still going to keep track of it, but I may not send it to him.
That's fair.
I'll just make a suggestion.
That's fair.
But you're not stubborn in the sense that you can take feedback.
Yeah, I look for. So I think another thing about choleric people is that they are generally high performing people. I think that's generally what it is, especially in workplaces. Mm-hmm. And so high performing people generally request feedback. Like they want, like, give me negative. It's maybe my melancholic side too. It's like, give me negative feedback. Tell me what I'm doing wrong so I can do better.
Because you want to improve.
Because you want to improve. Yeah. So I do that all the time. And I'll go to my boss being like, I think I messed up these 3 things. And he's like, no, you didn't. I'm like, but I think I did. He's like, no, you're fine.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, oh, that's interesting.
So it's interesting.
So that's my melancholic side, half empty. You know, I'm
Okay.
terrible. I'm always think I'm terrible at my job.
Um,
Joe's like, yeah, I know you are. Go on.
it's interesting to me that there's 4 people sitting here and there's 2 temperaments between us.
Yeah.
And so
all the same.
I'm curious, maybe Father, you could read a little bit about the other 2, because again, I know nothing about any of this. And so so it'd be useful to hear, maybe there's people, I'd be curious to hear how our temperament interact with those of the phlegmatic and whatever the other one are, sanguine.
I will tell you that my interacting with phlegmatic people for me is like as frustrating as you could ever imagine.
Well, maybe
Well, in a work setting, yeah, but like in a social setting, phlegmatics are wonderful. They're calm, easygoing, the good nature. They're the kind of people that you want to hang out with on Saturday because they'll do whatever you want to do.
they're the kind of people you want to
And
hang
they're
out
fun.
with, and they're the kind of people you never will hang out with because they'll never say their opinion in the group chat. That's my theory.
Okay, well,
And
that's,
sometimes-
a very
and
Gen Z
sometimes-
thing to
and
say.
I know, but hey,
sometimes-
here we are.
Sometimes phlegmatics struggle to make commitments and keep them. You know?
Yeah.
So that's tough to make plans sometimes.
Sure.
But if you have a phlegmatic who's a truly great friend, that can be an awesome gift. You know,
Sure.
to have that laid back fun person that kind of balances out your super high intensity.
So phlegmatics they're more mellow and they're more just kind of like easygoing, take it as it comes. That's
Yeah,
the
he's
idea.
going
Calm.
fun, calm.
I have a very good friend who's melancholic phlegmatic. And that's a combination, let me tell you.
That means you're
Calm.
introspective and fun. Wow,
Well,
interesting.
more on like the avoids crisis side of things. I'm just looking at this thing that you guys can't see, which is fine. But like appears lazy, relaxed, and peaceful, combined with like a glass half empty person who appears lazy. That's very difficult for a cleric person to interact with on a normal basis.
Yeah, sure.
I make it
sure.
work.
So what about the sanguine people?
And sanguine people, those are not like the chill. They're like the super energetic, bubbly, like super outgoing.
I have a really hard time with those people.
I'm okay with
So
that.
I wonder.
It depends. It depends.
I have a really hard time with those people.
Yeah.
I've never met somebody like that who I didn't. This is not a good, but every time I meet someone like that, my opinion of them is always very low to begin with. And
Why?
it has to work because this is not
That's so
good.
melancholic.
The way I receive that like enthusiasm over nothing is I perceive it as shallowness. So my perception of when people are like that is that there's nothing to be excited about. So like clearly must be affected because I cannot imagine being like this. But then
you can't imagine their
No, but
excitement level.
over
That's
like
true, yeah.
you meet the people though, they're just so bubbly and so kind of gregarious. But then like getting to know them, I always like them eventually.
But it's exhausting for you to deal
It
with.
can be, but it's just the immediate thing. I sense it myself as it's happening. I'm like, I know what I'm doing right now. I really shouldn't be doing it. I'm judging him. I don't know him yet. He's probably a fine guy.
Well, but I think you hit the nail on the head. And we're talking about the positives and negatives of each one. And one of the negatives of a sanguine, sanguines are great and they're fun loving and everyone loves them. But the downside is the shallow superficiality. And so that's what they have to always watch out for is really kind of deepening an interior life to balance that out. To say I'm coming from a place of not just like Pollyanna, like yeah, life's great,
Right.
but like really a true joy that comes from Christ, which is definitely different. So
Yeah, I kind of want to have all my friends take this test now and see if we're compatible or not.
Do you want to have them take it so then you can critique them?
No, so I say I want to see what explanatory power it has.
But you all put some really negative things to your choleric and melancholic, but I think there's a lot of real positives too in terms of what you can do for the kingdom and just who you're meant to be.
Mm-hmm.
What a great gift the fact that Diane not too many years ago started a whole Catholic young adult group and most phlegmatics wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
They'd be like, I'm just gonna wait till it comes to me. She's like, no, I'm gonna go out and get it, and she did it, and it benefited the lives of so many people and that's why I've always found as a priest, for me being mostly choleric, I'm much better at proactive ministry than reactive ministry. Like if someone calls for like an emergency, I'll certainly do it. But my main strength, my main like thing that I love is let's organize a prayer service. Let's organize this. Let's put together this group. Let's go on a hike and whatever.
Yeah, that's
there's a lot of
definitely
positives.
choleric. Yeah,
Yeah, there's a lot of
definitely choleric.
positives to that though too. I mean, because if everyone was sanguine, nothing would get done.
Yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of people want to, for example, in the Catholic community and these events and stuff. And part of the reason that I started the group was because a lot of people want to participate, but no one wants to lead. So it's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
we can talk. We're talking about, oh, I would love to have a Bible study, and it's like, okay, well, we've been talking about this for 2 months now. I guess no one's doing it, so I'll go ahead and do it. And just like to have the diligence. Of course, it takes effort, obviously, and you have to be willing to put in the effort.
Yeah.
There's something called Pareto distribution, and it's this rule that just happens in pretty much everything, in all the things, right? where 80% of something is done by 20% of something else. Right, so
I've
80.
heard that, yeah.
So it's like 80% of the work of organizing in a parish is probably done by less than 20% of people.
5% of people.
Yeah.
Right. But it's
5
also
people, more
like
like it,
20%. 20% of authors write like 80% of the books. Like 20% of the stars have 80% of the mass of all the stars. Like it's all these things, and it's a Pareto distribution, and it makes sense because like we always like the most important things are going to attract the most amount of stuff. Right, like gravity. So with stars, like gravity attracts more stuff. So
I've always
if you
just heard
have,
that called 80-20 rule, but yeah.
it's a Pareto distribution if you want to be specific.
Pareto.
I don't know. Yeah.
I'll take your word for it.
Yeah. So anyway, so that's kind of the thing. So I think clerics, one of the downsides of being cleric is that you do get burned out potentially.
Yes.
And in all because you may not be as sanguine, right? You're more choleric, and so then you get irritated by people because they're not pulling their weight. But if you actually think about it, it's like, no, probably the 20% of people that are doing stuff, they're all just the clerics, right? and you have to kind of like deal with that.
Yeah, and that's okay because I mean, the older I get, the more I really appreciate people that are sanguine and super bubbly. Because I remember the first time I ever hosted a party at my house when I was like 13 years old, and I was like, so talk about awkward teen stage. You're like, oh, my friends are coming. What are we supposed to do? I don't know. But thankfully, my cousin, who's like totally sanguine, she showed up and she's like, all right guys, let's play games, let's go. And like she was like talking like she talked to all these friends she had never met before, like all my friends.
It's a gift.
And I was like, that's a gift. That's so like you totally broke the ice day one.
Right.
And honestly, I think we need more of that in parish life because there's a lot of people in parish life who are not willing to go up and meet a new person.
I'm not. Yeah, I'm very bad with that.
Really?
I am too. Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Well, I got stopped in the grocery store.
Yeah.
I got stopped in the grocery store the other day. I was walking around and I saw one of the dads in Stamford who goes to one of the parishes here in Stamford. And he's like, hey, I see you around a lot. My name's so-and-so. What's your name? And I'm like, I've like known of this guy for 6 years. And I would have never said anything to him in the grocery store. It's just not my personality. I'm like in there to get a job done, and that's to get to my groceries and leave. And I'm not in the mood for socializing.
That's
not
so
the
true.
place.
That's so true.
I'm here to buy food.
If I
to make new friends.
If I see a high school friend at the gym, I wouldn't say
No
hi to
new
him.
friends.
If he was across the gym, I would not.
I agree. I don't talk to people out in public.
When I have to, so for my job, I have to go to a lot of cocktail hours. I'm wearing this sports jacket because I was literally at a cocktail hour earlier tonight. And
Am I explain the episode content with the people decide at the end?
wait, what?
How much are you drinking? No, I'm just
I
kidding.
had half a glass of Prosecco.
Touch your nose and then touch your nose with the other hand.
Okay, that's enough. No, I am fully sober. Thank you. But before I go into any of these cocktail hours, I have to like give myself a little pep talk.
Yeah, this is your job.
Yeah,
You need to
it's
do
like
this.
I have to pretend to be more sanguine for the next hour,
Yeah.
and then I will leave.
See, that's where I think the temperaments like they box you in because I'm melancholic, but I enjoy meeting new people. That's part of why I love starting the community because it's like, oh, like new person, let me
But
get
do
to
you
know
look at
them.
it as like a task though?
No,
Oh,
I enjoy
interesting.
it.
That's interesting.
I love meeting new people if there's a hope that there's going to be a deeper relationship with them.
Yeah.
So like conversations on airplanes, I don't get into because I know I'll never see that person ever again.
Oh, see, I like that.
But
Do
what
you
if
really?
what
No,
if
I talk
God
to people all
placed
the
you in
time.
that
I mean, I'm
person's
on
life
airplanes a lot,
to like say something that
Apparently
ends
he
up-
doesn't because I've never, I wear my collar every single time I fly, which is once or twice a year. And only one time in my entire life twice in my entire life has someone come up to me and talked
Yeah.
Okay.
on an airplane, airport, and like it just doesn't happen. So I don't know if I give off vibes being like, I'm not here to talk.
Yeah. I mean, I'm taking flights with all guys generally wearing sports jackets like me. And so we all are pretty much probably in overlapping industries. And so we tend to talk to it.
You talk shop,
A little bit, yeah. And you meet people like that. It's like, oh, I used to work with your colleague. It happens all the time on airplanes from LaGuardia Airport. It's just part of the job. So I do talk to people on airplanes quite a bit.
Yeah.
See, I like meeting new people, but but you were once a new person, Paul. I met you.
Yeah, we shared a dessert.
It was great.
That's right.
Yeah, I saw that
That's
picture.
right. They met.
Where was this?
Eating one dessert.
Donors of Veritas. I'll send you the picture if you want. Us sharing banana
If
pudding.
you like and subscribe, you can have.
That's
picture.
right,
That
yeah,
restaurant
yeah.
is now defunct. That's kind of
Is it really?
Yeah, it's defunct.
But
Where was that?
it's like a barbecue place or something like that.
Was it Dinosaur Barbecue?
No.
Oh, no.
that would have been like 10 years ago.
Either way,
Anyway,
it doesn't
go
matter.
on,
I like meeting new
Sorry.
people,
Tangent.
but I'm very awkward meeting new people, and I'm not outgoing. Like I think of myself as being pretty extroverted so far as I like being with people, but I'm very shy with new people and stuff, not with people I know, but with new people. And so I'd be happy to like plan a party. I definitely want to meet everybody involved in it. But unless someone like introduced me to the people themselves, like I'm probably not going to talk to anybody. Like I like me at a party with all my like it was like my own birthday party, for example, with all my friends versus like me at a parish function where I know 3 people and totally different personalities.
Yeah.
So I don't know which fluid type make it.
That's probably I would assume that's like,
but
I would assume that's probably because that's an introverted tendency, so it'd be more
Yeah, I'd say melancholic.
yeah.
No, it's definitely difficult. I think probably not too many people really like, feel comfortable having this conversation.
Especially at first,
I'm
too.
surprised
I
we
don't
don't have
know.
a sanguine person because this is like a social thing that we're doing here.
So I wonder if what Lauren would be or what
purposely
Matt would
didn't
be.
invite them
Right.
because all us clerics don't like saying.
Does
that.
that-
I
actually
mean,
just a
Matt's probably a sanguine, right?
Matt's sanguine.
Yeah,
Yeah.
our producer.
Our
Producer,
producer
Matt.
Matt.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you're listening to this, which
He's
I
always
don't know if he's
smiling.
anyway.
He's
Yeah.
always
Yeah.
enthusiastic.
There are some people who just love working a crowd, and it's amazing. My apostle partner this year in seminary is from Bangladesh. His name's Nirvoy, and his English is pretty good. But he's only been here for a year, so it's not perfect or anything like that. And we did go to parish function, and I was like standing like on the hill talking to the one teacher from the school I knew. He's going up to everybody, introducing himself, remembering names from like whatever. He's like totally working the crowd in language he doesn't really speak perfectly. And meanwhile, I'm here speaking English, arguably fine, and not talking to anybody. So it's a personality thing.
I think you have to be a sanguine to be a bishop. Because you're meeting, every single day you're going to confirmations and shaking hands with 1,000 people. I don't know. I would find it. I think so draining.
No, I think cleric. You definitely have to be cleric. I think.
Well,
Yeah, for sure.
maybe, yeah.
I think bishops come in all shapes and
Sanguine,
sizes,
maybe fake
literally and
sanguine.
figuratively.
Yeah, fake sanguine. I don't know.
Yeah, I think
But-
you have to be able to affect a sanguine sort of veneer.
Yeah, an outer appearance,
Yeah.
but who knows how they really feel.
Yeah, it's like it's.
Yeah.
A
So
I mean,
conversation less than an hour.
I've met some pretty boring bishops.
Fair.
There's
That's
a
fair.
lot of like administrative bishops. They're great. They're not. It's not a bad thing, but they're just. They do the job. They
So
might do it
question.
well.
Question for you guys: do you tend to hang around people who are your same temperament, or are you attracted to the opposite?
I honestly think that oftentimes I catch myself doing this where I meet somebody or I know someone I don't like them, and then I realize what I don't like about them is actually very much true about me. Like this guy, like he's this that, and I'm like, oh yeah, so am I.
Yeah.
I just don't like that.
Yeah,
I think actually a lot of my friends are often very different personalities than me.
interesting.
Yeah, that's a good question.
I think you need a certain amount of overlap. I do
Yeah.
think so.
Yeah.
And then having some balance is good. And we might actually seek that out. But if 2 people are just opposite ends of the spectrum,
Yeah.
it's going to be very hard for those people to get along.
What
Yeah.
would you say for marriage then? Like, because
A degree of overlap
Yeah.
with some balance.
Yeah.
I think it's most interpersonal. Not that I'm married,
It's funny because
but like most
my-
interpersonal relationships.
my mom and dad are complete opposite ends of the spectrum
And that can happen
on
too.
this. Absolutely, they're totally two opposites.
yeah, no relationship is the same, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't
what
know.
works for some doesn't work for others.
What do you think about that? What about your friend? You and your friends, are they mostly of the same personality type?
I would say they have different in terms of friends, but I think just in terms of marriage, I agree with Paul. There has to be some over. I think if you're
Yeah.
on the complete opposite side of the spectrum, you just drive each other crazy. But it's good. Like you can have the same temperament and just different sort of. There's so many aspects to the temperaments that something helps to balance you out, or you realize
Yeah.
being with someone who is different than you, regardless of their temperament, is a good thing because it can help
Right.
you to kind of put things into perspective and also figure out like what you need to work on. Like to your point of this annoys me about this person. Well, like
Right.
Yeah.
It's actually about
That's
me.
why I don't particularly like this test. Sorry, whoever
Wait.
whoever is copyright written it currently, or whoever's like doing
Well,
the
not
thing.
least
You don't like it because
perfect,
it's free. That was it, right?
No, I'm a bigger fan of. I like for more personality, which I think is actually more descriptive. I'm a bigger fan of like Big 5 personality model and Myers-Briggs.
I'm not familiar with either of those, unfortunately.
Yeah,
but-
Myers-Briggs is more used in like a work setting.
I think I've taken that one. I don't remember what I am though.
I'm a not a technician. I don't remember what I am, but I'm an ISTJ.
Yeah, there's like 4
Logis-
letters. I don't
Yeah,
know.
which is like a logistician.
Yeah, I
Oh,
am
yeah.
too.
Oh, okay.
yeah, well,
makes
we have
sense,
the same temperament, so
Same
Yeah.
job, yeah.
yeah.
So anyway, so that's kind of my. I like that one
wheelhouse.
better. It describes me better than trying to, because I think it has 4 dimensions as opposed to, and like Big 5 personality model has 5. And so just saying like you're 2 things or even just 1 thing is like just insufficient.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
So that's why when
That's
people
fair.
bring up this one, I'm like,
I mean,
yeah,
all
like
things
that.
limp, because yeah, there's no proper characterization of every person because I think God did make everyone unique.
Yeah.
in the world. We're trying to put everyone in a category.
And I hate too when people ask about it, like when they're trying to analyze you too, when they first get to know you, of like, oh, what's your temperament? You know, because it's hard to. You don't want to just say, okay, you can't just box me in because of what I, you know, like, oh, I'm melancholic, because that doesn't. It's not the full picture, I think.
That's very true. That's very true. We're a lot more complicated than that.
Yeah.
But I think what's been most helpful for me is to understand myself, not to understand anyone else, but to understand myself, because. You know, especially going through seminary, there's a lot of formation that they try to kind of mold you into, you know, who you're supposed to be as a priest, and some of it I was kind of like, I just don't fit that mold. Like didn't fit for me. And then when I read this, I was like, oh, okay, that's why. You know, that's
And
what
sometimes,
made a lot of sense.
yeah, sorry, were you?
Yeah, I'm done.
Sometimes I think that. All right, see you guys next time. I think sometimes there's a temptation, and at least I feel in seminary, where I look at a guy who has, you know, like whatever it is, he's good, you know, he never really complains, like he's always just sort of optimistic, or he sort of accepts things with a really good spirit of docility, or he's always charitable, whatever it is, and it's easy to look at that and like, wow, I really, not only do I admire that character trait, but I actually envy that character trait, and I wish that came to me as easily as it comes to him. But the reality is that there are probably, I mean, it's hard to imagine, but there might be good things about me that don't come easily to that person, right? And so you know, God makes us, you know, unique, and there's a complementarity that exists sort of like in aggregate, right? Where I think I try to remind myself, like, yeah, like he's good, like that. It's some things just do come naturally, right? Like maybe he struggles with charity in this way less than you do, because he's just like, sort of less naturally critical of things than you are. I actually realized this about one of my friends in seminary. He and I would often not butt heads. We had very different perspectives about, like, you know, I would complain about something, he'd be like, yeah, I think it's fine, and I realized that it was because going back to I think the choleric thing, like I really think that like formation matters, and so if a formation conference is awful, I get really aggravated about it and I'm very critical of it, because in my mind it should be really, really good, because formation is actually very important. And I think his attitude is actually like, well, whatever, it's all whatever. So like it's whatever. I don't think it's that important. So if it's not that good, who cares? I'm like, well, I care a lot. So but looking at it, like, oh wow, Joe's so cynical. It's like, no, Joe's not like, I'm not cynical. I have a really high expectation for this, and so I think sometimes there are just like deeper things at work, you know.
Yeah, I think that's why we have a lot of conflict sometimes between human beings, is that we perhaps, you know, I would look at someone and be like, that person's lazy. Well, maybe it's just their temperament is not as driven as mine is. And they have a lot of advantages that I don't have, that they can like let stuff go, and they can, you know, they learn how to rest and balance things better than I do. And so, yeah, so I think God purposely made everyone with a different temperament, complementary, hopefully, so that we get stuff done, you know, and have a happy world.
Or not get stuff. Well, that's a weird way of saying it as a cleric, but like, but it's also good to have to take a step back and think and pray and be silent, and so like maybe that's what the phlegmatics can teach us or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
And there's a benefit to having peacemakers and people that are
stay present, stay in the moment, you know, not thinking about the future or the past.
Exactly.
And we need evangelists that can be super bubbly and, you know, sanguine.
Yeah. And the good news is you look at the lives of the saints and you see saints of all kinds of temperaments. You know, saints who are real pain in the behind. You know, I mean, Saint Jerome would not win a personality contest. I mean, that guy had a crunchy personality. Yeah. You know, there's a very famous story.
It's a great image, crunchy personality. I love that.
Yeah,
it's awesome.
A little prickly. You know, he's like a little porcupine sometimes. And this is a great story about him in the rock. You know that story?
No.
So so there's a painting of him in the Vatican where he's holding a rock in his hand, because he used to walk around beating his chest with the rock after one of his big angry outbursts. I mean, he and Augustine fought it out in letters back and forth. There's some of the meanest, nastiest things you'll ever see saints exchange with one another. And so, you know, one of the popes walked by the painting one time and said, if it were not for that rock, you would not be a saint. You know, the recognition that he had anger issues that he had to work on, Saint Jerome. And God bless him. He worked on them. He felt repentant for them, but he also knew that was his big weakness. And other saints never struggled with anger.
But I guess that's the cool thing, too, to keep the perspective of it's more meritorious for you to overcome something that's a struggle. Whereas, like, to your point of not being envious of others where they don't have the anger issue or it just comes easily, because it's an opportunity that God is giving you to work on virtue and gain that merit.
Yeah. I mean, I think with our basic personalities, we're going to remain that way for our entire life, but we can try to overcome the vices that come along with it.
Right.
Yeah. Like with my choleric personality, okay, I need to learn how to rest, and I need to learn how to delegate, and I need to, you know.
Yeah.
Have empathy for dead hamsters.
Empathy for dead hamsters. And
I don't think you're not having empathy for the hamster. You're having empathy for the kid who lost the hamster. And losing a pet's hard. Hamster, that's a struggle. Losing a dog is very hard.
That's true.
See, I wouldn't even have empathy for that.
Well, have you ever had pet? You have pets?
I did have a dog.
You grew up in rural Maryland. They shot their food. That's
I saw you ate our chickens.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
What's for dinner tonight? Oh, Roy's for dinner.
Well, that's interesting. Yeah, it's a different perspective on animals than
but
yeah. Anyway,
Yeah,
I think
anyway.
that for me, I think that for as more a person who's more choleric, I struggle with like prayer to some extent because it's always like a thing that can be accomplished and a thing that can be done.
Yeah, boxes
Right?
can be checked. Yeah.
Yeah, and because it's like, okay, now it's time to pray. Like, yes, like let's go,
get it done.
let's go pray. And it's like, well, that's not always the best attitude.
Right.
To address it. So I have to work on that. So that's where I have to tap my melancholic side, I guess, to be more introspective. Is that the word? Introspective.
Yes, introspective.
Yeah, look at me go.
Foster that relationship.
Yeah.
Exactly. So thank you for joining us. We've reached the end, but I would encourage all of our listeners to research more about the 4 temperaments. If you want to take this temperaments quiz, it's free.
In case you didn't know.
This particular one is
Or you
free.
can
I'm sure you could go find
Or
one
you
that
can
costs money.
take other ones.
Maybe Matt could toss in the show notes or something like that.
What?
Maybe Matt could put it in the show notes. The show notes and podcasts.
Well, we could actually, yeah.
Yeah.
We could
Yeah.
put it,
That was the look of somebody who does not listen to podcasts. Like show notes.
Yeah. Or down below.
Yeah, down below.
Yeah.
So check out this temperaments quiz. Take it, and it might give you some insight onto yourself and rejoice in the way which God made you, but also seek to overcome whatever vices come along with the temperament. And God made your temperament for a specific purpose, definitely for you to become a saint and for you to advance the kingdom of God. You can find us on Veritas Catholic Network, 1350 AM and 103.9 FM, wherever you get your podcasts, YouTube, and other social media and podcasting sites. So tune in next time to Restless.